Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Monday, March 14th, 2016. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, how Hollywood is being influenced by politics. Then, report, 124 detainees from the ICE Catch and Release program have committed murder. After that, Vermont is considering legalizing marijuana. And a concealed carrier puts down an axe-swinging maniac. That's next.
Well, you come in my house, you're dead. In fact, I'll show people on air right now. And people are so scared of firearms. I mean, you come in here trying to kill people, it's over.
Well, we got a bunch of here, right? You can carry.
Yeah, we got a bunch of guys that are armed back there.
I think it's great.
But I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I mean, the criminal's going to have a gun anyways.
What is that? A 45?
This is a 357.
Nice.
I mean, I only have this because even though I'm a good shot and good with like more complex firearms and semi-autos, under stress.
Yeah.
I mean, with this, even short barrel. Fellow Info Warriors, I am very excited to be able to announce to you the introduction at InfoWarsLife.com of a new way to save time and money when you stock up on InfoWars Life formulations like Survival Shield X2 and Super Male Vitality. Just go to InfoWarsLife.com today, select your favorite product, click on Auto Ship before adding to cart, and choose how often you want us to send you another order. Every time you choose Auto Ship at InfoWarsLife.com, you get 10% off and you won't have to worry about running out and having to reorder next time. And of course, you can cancel with one click anytime. As you know, I'm all about the idea of a 360 win, and the new auto ship feature at InfoWarsLife.com is a sure win for everybody. A win for liberty, a win for health, and a win when it comes to big savings. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today and save 10% on your next InfoWars Life order by selecting auto ship at checkout. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Do you understand what this election is about? Belgian actor and action hero Jean-Claude Van Damme does. This is what he had to say.
Restons politique, restons droit, parce que si jamais monsieur
Says, well, they're not going to win. You still have the Rockefeller people like the Rothschilds, those big families that dominate continents. So it's not even France we're talking, continents. These are families that rise in 1827, a family with 5 sons that expands. It's above everything we're talking about tonight. So you have lobbyists, people that are candidates to the elections. And then you have people like Donald Trump, who has what, 10 billion euros? He might have more, but that's what he declares in legal documents in any case. If I myself have goods and worked all my life for my families, my friend, or my country, where I pay taxes, what he wants first, in my opinion, is to protect his interests, whereas someone who works for free is someone dangerous. You see, he understands what the problem is. He says, they have the globalists are the problem. He says you have to get out of globalism to leave the world alone. Now, here's an example of who's the insider and who's the outsider. We see this over and over again. The mask has really come off. Look at this story from Bloomberg. Trump gets 0 from Federal Reserve employees as they bestow more money on Democrats. And they don't put it in the headlines, but you can also read, and Ted Cruz. Now, look, these Federal Reserve employees don't believe that Cruz wants to audit the Fed or end the Fed. Neither do I, and you shouldn't either. Look at who they're giving their money to. They say Trump, who accused Fed Chair Janet Yellen in October of keeping interest rates low as a favor to Obama, hasn't collected a single donation from Federal Reserve employees, according to an FEC, Federal Election Commission data. Senator Ted Cruz, however, has received $2,000, while Marco Rubio has taken in $750. Hillary Clinton has gotten $18,000 this year. So according to that index, we know who the Fed employees like. They really love Hillary Clinton, but they like Ted Cruz a lot too, and they're not afraid of him. They're not giving a cent to Donald Trump. Now, there's this article today from a senator, David Perdue, out of Georgia, and he puts his finger right on this. This top of Drudge, why Washington's political class is losing control. He says the Washington political establishment has hit the panic button, not because they're afraid of any one individual or candidate, but because they're afraid of losing their own political power. And he goes on to say, a growing number of Americans are motivated by this feeling of frustration more than by individual political ideology. The rise of career politicians has completely shifted the political paradigm from just liberal versus conservative. There's now a disconnect between the Washington political class and everybody else. It's now the insiders versus the outsiders. Nowhere do you see this more clearly than in these trade deals that are coming, but also in the sclerosis, the refusal to do anything about Obamacare or about the open borders. And he goes on to say, true to form though, the political elites prefer to tear down individuals instead of understanding what created this movement. So we see this establishment that is absolutely tone deaf. They are tone deaf to the failed establishment candidates as well as to Mitt Romney. So what do? They pull out Mitt Romney to try to help their establishment candidates. We saw this a week ago. We had Mitt Romney cutting radio ads for John Kasich, cutting radio ads for Marco Rubio in every one of the states, and Rubio was coming in third and fourth place in every one of the states. Kasich essentially the same as well. So now they've got Mitt Romney traveling in Ohio because Ohio is where they need to try to take delegates away from Trump. And we're going to talk about the baseball game aspect of this, or the playoffs aspect, the sports aspect of what's at stake tomorrow. There's a lot of delegates up for stake, and it's about more than just two candidates who might lose their home states. This could be something that consolidates tomorrow, putting it really out of the reach of all the other candidates, or pushing this into a contested convention where the establishment figures will be able to pick who the candidates are. And that's why you've got Mitt Romney, even though he hasn't helped at all. That's why he's traveling now with John Kasich in Ohio. You know, we really haven't paid much attention to John Kasich because, you know, he really never had a chance. But now he's ready for his 15 minutes of fame, and that, of course, will be tomorrow. We're going to talk about what happens with him, win or lose in Ohio. This guy is done. But it does have an effect on the delegates for Donald Trump. But I want you to take a look at this story going back to the beginning of February. This is when John Kasich was going all out to try to win New Hampshire. And they talk there about how mean old John Kasich became Mr. Nice Guy. They say Ohio's famously abrasive governor ditches the tough talk to convince New Hampshire voters he's the anti-Trump. And of course, this is, as I said, just before the New Hampshire primary. They say, and here's an example of him, okay? Did you know that you were made special? You're here to make the world a better place. There's no one like you in the whole world. And as they point out, that's essentially John Kasich has become Mr. Rogers, but he wasn't always that way. Just like you've got Ted Cruz, who was kind of always for this before he was against it on issue after issue. We see the same thing with John Kasich, who has gone through a metamorphosis of personality. They say this is the same John Kasich who, over the course of his 30-plus year political career in Ohio and Washington, has been called some extraordinary things for a public figure. He's been called unpleasant, cranky, a jerk, even worse than Donald Trump. And that's just from the headlines. They say, but here he is sounding like Mr. Rogers leading a high school civics class. They say the challenge for Kasich is to overcome his legendary persona, which was more a prince of spite than a prince of light. So he's been unapologetically brusque and sensitive, even mean. He once mimicked the convulsive shaking of a Parkinson's sufferer in his State of the State speech. He calls his own legislators knuckleheads, thugs, bullies. He publicly called a police officer who gave him a traffic ticket an idiot. And he was betting it all in New Hampshire, in the Granite State. And listen to see if this doesn't sound familiar. He was telling everybody back in New Hampshire, he says, if I get snuffed out in New Hampshire, the ball game is over. But here he is, nearly 2 months later, and he's still going, okay? He hasn't won anything, but he's not going anywhere. He's a thing that will not leave. Now, they point out Kasich made his scrappy reputation very quickly. He was elected to the House of Representatives in 1982. He was appointed Budget Committee Chairman by Newt Gingrich. He stood out as a stern budget hawk who mouthed off at constituents and at fellow Republicans. He was a tough guy. He was even criticized by John McCain for having a hair-trigger temper. You know, John McCain is not an even-tempered guy himself, legendarily that way. 2 days after he won the governor's race, he told lobbyists in Ohio, he says, if you're not on the bus, we will run you over with the bus. And I'm not kidding. But now, he's such a nice guy. This is what he's going to do for everybody, as he said this weekend on the Sunday shows.
No, I didn't say path to legalization.
Path to legalization, excuse me.
Well, I mean, what I proposed is, look, first of all, we're going to freeze all federal regulations for 1 year and have a vice president begin to deregulate, look at the things that don't make sense, get rid of them. Number two, we're going to have tax cuts both for businesses and for individuals. Number three, we're also going to restrain government so we can get to a balanced budget. Number four, let's get the border fixed. Number five, let's start working on Social Security.
That's right. In his first 100 days, he's got a lot of things that he's going to do. One of those is going to be comprehensive amnesty for illegal aliens that are here. And as Breitbart points out, he's also said that illegals are made in the image of the Lord. He's said a lot of very interesting things here as he puts on his kumbaya mask that he is now wearing. As I point out in the article, he's gone for months with no scrutiny, even with his most bizarre statements made on the campaign trail. But in recent days, Trump has set his sights on Kasich, of course, because of Ohio. He's talked about his role at Lehman Brothers, part of that crash, and how he profited as the teachers' unions were left with the bags, as well as his support for NAFTA and Obama's Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, what we call Obama Trade, which Donald Trump and Senator Sessions, have warned would destroy Ohio's auto industry. But here's some of the things that he said. He said, number one, God bless illegal immigrants, as he points out. He says they're a critical part of our society. Number two, he says, I can't imagine enforcing our current immigration laws. That's not the kind of values we believe in. John Kasich also likened deporting illegal population to Japanese internment camps. He says allowing ICE officers to do their job is not humane. Well, let's look at what happens when ICE is not allowed to do its job, its law enforcement job, not allowed to deport people who shouldn't be here, who are breaking the law. We have 124 illegal immigrants released from jail that have now later been charged with 138 murder cases. That's more than one per illegal immigrant that has been taken out. And of course, we've had the Secure Borders, Secure Communities initiative, where people who are arrested for various charges were looked at by ICE to determine whether or not they were here illegally, and then turned over to ICE. But now we've had the Democrats and presumably John Kasich who think that that's not something that should be done. So this is the result of this. As they point out, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has revealed 124 illegal immigrant criminals released from jail by the Obama administration since 2010 because they no longer want to do secure communities, have subsequently been charged with murder. They say criminal aliens released by ICE in these years who have already been convicted of thousands of crimes are responsible for a significant crime spree in the American communities, including 124 new homicides. Inexplicably, ICE is choosing to release criminal aliens sometimes multiple times. And as we've seen over and over again, sheriffs at the border, communities at the border, whether they're Hispanic or not, they're saying there is no control at the border. The only people who have control at the border are these criminal cartels, people who are running drugs, people who are trafficking humans. Those are the people that are controlling our borders, because the borders will be controlled by someone, just not by our law enforcement if John Kasich has his way. Here's another example. Feds missed 2 chances to deport an illegal alien accused of gunning down 5 people in Kansas and Missouri, in 2 states, killing 5 different people. This is someone who multiple times re-entered the country, was deported, brought back in. He was even faced domestic battery charges in June. They arrested him for a traffic violation. But of course, it is racist if we go through and we run and check on people. We're not supposed to do that. So he was allowed to do whatever he wanted to. He was given a pass that people, even who live in this country, would not be given. Here's a father speaking out on Breitbart, talking about what it has meant to him personally. Father of a son murdered by an illegal, says that pro-amnesty John Kasich and Marco Rubio should be tried for treason. He says, how much of this do we have to take? And he's talking about the longstanding refusal by the Republican Party to enforce the nation's immigration laws. Galvach, whose 25-year-old son Spencer was stopped at a traffic light when an illegal alien pulled up next to him and shot him in the head, explains that the reason he now backs Donald Trump for president is because of the holidays that he's had to spend at the cemetery and the image of his child's deflated head in a casket that has been burned into his mind. He said, losing a child is something one never really gets acclimated to. I can tell you it is a very dark place of despair. He said, these GOP establishment leaders like Rubio don't want to shackle their donors down to their pesky little immigration laws that were designed to keep us safe, but which would compromise their cheap labor pool, okay, the people who give money to Rubio, the people who back Kasich. He says it is nothing short of treason. And he says John Kasich, he says, is the most traitorous of the bunch. What he is proposing will end America, talking about Kasich's desire to enact amnesty within his first 100 days of office. He said John Kasich is the poster boy puppet for his donors. He could care less about what negative effect amnesty would have on American workers, what negative effect it would have on American families. I still have nightmares when you have to go look at your child's deflated head in a casket. It never gets out of your mind. And then you look at people like Marco Rubio talking this nonsense about immigration, and your blood starts to boil. It really does. He says Donald Trump is not shackled to the oligarchs, the plutocrats, the donors, even though he used to be one. Donald Trump, he says, has done more for this cause by speaking out in the way that he has than anybody else. I don't think that our leaders on either side of the party were very invested in speaking out about this unless it was just superficial or so that they could get votes. You see, even people like a foreign actor, Jean-Claude Van Damme, understands what's going on. He understands that this is a contest between the globalists, the people like the Rothschilds, the people, the multinational corporations who want to destroy the sovereignty of individual nations with open borders, with these trade agreements that export our jobs, that import our workers, and of course, with the global climate change treaties. They have 3 different ways that they're doing this, and synergistically they all work together, and the only person who is opposing this is Donald Trump. He says, my support for Trump is not because I believe he has some kind of political panacea that can fix all of our problems. I certainly don't. He said, what I do know is that at least he's not shackled to the Koch brothers or to Sheldon Adelson or to people that have been very forthcoming in their opinions about having open borders. And of course, Sheldon Adelson also represents the neocons who want us to be in a state of perpetual war for profit. He says, I don't believe Ted Cruz is really all that interested in protecting us from illegal aliens either. He said, I think Cruz is ambiguous on this. Frankly, some of his wife's associations have been a bit bothersome to me. And to me, I would add, and I've talked about this multiple times, he says, I don't understand Ted Cruz. He wants to increase the H-1B visa program. Why? He said, we got 95 million people in this country who are already out of work. He's clearly well informed on policy candidates and positions, as they point out in the Breitbart article. He knows about Heidi Cruz's role in the Council on Foreign Relations, the building a North American community. He says, yeah, that doesn't sound very closed borders to me. Well, actually, they do want to have borders of a sort. They wanted to put a border around Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, and then have that patrolled by Homeland Security. Now, when we come back, we're going to take a look at the economic aspect of what John Kasich and the globalists are trying to sell us. This is what is at stake in tomorrow's election. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Refugees are pouring into our great country from Syria. We don't even know who they are. They could be ISIS. They could be anybody. What's our president doing? Is he insane?
Thousands of years ago, there was a basic form of chivalry. Our ancestors would hear the drums of war, giving the warriors of the tribe a chance to organize and prepare a defense. 60 years ago, when foreign air forces were approaching filled with bombs, they had drums of their own, air raid sirens. But in the 21st century, there are silent weapons for quiet war. Pathogens added to the food and water, and to the lining of plastics that destroy our vitality, turn off our hormones, and accelerate our journey towards death. I personally counter this onslaught with Anthroplex. Anthroplex is designed with known organic concentrated herbs to create the basic foundation to normal metabolic activity inside the human body. Discover why Anthroplex is turning so many heads today. It's time for us to take our bodies back into our own hands, and it starts at InfoWarsLife.com with Anthroplex. My fellow InfoWarriors, I am very excited to be able to announce to you the introduction at InfoWarsLife.com of a new way to save time and money when you stock up on InfoWars Life formulations like Survival Shield X2 and Super Male Vitality. Just go to InfoWarsLife.com today, select your favorite product, click on Auto Ship before adding to cart, and choose how often you want us to send you another order. Every time you choose Auto Ship at InfoWarsLife.com, you get 10% off, and you won't have to worry about running out and having to reorder next time. And of course, you can cancel with one click anytime. As you know, I'm all about the idea of a 360 win, and the new auto ship feature at InfoWarsLife.com is a sure win for everybody. A win for liberty, a win for health, and a win when it comes to big savings. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today and save 10% on your next InfoWars Life order by selecting auto ship at checkout. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Your liver can be full of fatty deposits, built-up toxins, and even dangerous objects known as liver stones. We worked with the top developers in the field of detox to take tried and true herbs and other compounds known to safely cleanse the liver and fused it with the latest research and technological development on concentrating these ingredients to give you the maximum effect. Liver Shield is the only liver support product on the market that uses a patented Spigirex blend of powerful organic herbs that support detoxification. And when you visit InfoWarsLife.com, see the instructional video on how to do a 6-day liver detox. This isn't a game, and let me tell you, the results are dramatic. Liver Shield is totally organic and made of the safest high-quality herbs. Liver Shield is the only liver support product on the market that uses a patented Spigirex blend of powerful organic herbs that support detoxification. And when you visit InfoWarsLife.com, see the instructional video on how to do a 6-day liver detox. This isn't a game, and let me tell you, the results are dramatic. Liver Shield is totally organic and made of the safest high-quality herbs. But that said, you need to consult your physician before you do the full detox. Liver Shield can also be used daily by itself for overall upkeep of the liver. Secure your Liver Shield today exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com for the lowest price available. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Well, of course, one of the primaries that's going to be decided tomorrow is Florida. And in Florida, we have an interesting matchup. Marco Rubio is now down double digits, in some cases more than 20 points in some polls, to Donald Trump. In his desperation, he has been appealing to people to vote for him simply because he's Hispanic. But there's an article from the Tampa Bay Times that talks to Hispanic people in Florida, mostly Cuban. These are the Cubans that I know as a former Florida resident. This is one fellow who is Julio Martinez, a former Hialeah mayor. He says, "I don't think as a Cuban, I think as an American." Those were the Cuban people that I knew in Florida, the Cuban people that I grew up with, that I was friends with in Florida. And they say for 2 weeks, he's held a Trump campaign sign outside an early voting site just blocks from where Rubio last week implored Hispanics to vote for him in Tuesday's presidential primary. Understand, Rubio's appeal was vote for me because I'm Hispanic. It was essentially a racist appeal, and yet this Cuban mayor says, I think as an American. Now, he goes on to say the worst problem in the United States today is the economy, explaining his support for Trump. He said he had even persuaded his wife, Xiomara, to back Trump. He says she's been a citizen for 2 decades, though she was in the U.S. illegally for a time with a lapsed Nicaraguan visa. She said at the beginning, "What are you doing? He's too rough on immigration," he said. I told her, "You walk into the house and someone is sitting on your couch. What do? You call the police." That is what he is saying. And she voted for Donald Trump 3 days ago, he said. Then they say, as if on cue, another guy, Luis Tejera, 51, walked over, asked to pose for a picture with Martinez and his sign. He said, "I just want change. I'm tired of politicians promising everything and nothing happens." Now, this guy is a police officer. And though he's Cuban-American, he said the Cuban ties of Rubio and the GOP presidential candidate Ted Cruz of Texas meant little to him. He says, "I vote for the person, I vote for their ideas, not for their race or their ethnicity." See, that's it. It's the appeals to racism, and that's what's falling flat. That's why Donald Trump is appealing to people across demographics, across geographics. It's because people want to fix the economy. And they understand, when John Kasich says, hey, we're all made in the image of God, the illegal immigrants are, he says. Well, we all are, aren't we? It's not just illegal immigrants that are made in the image of God. We all have dreams, not just the people who come into this country illegally. So what is in the best interest of the people in this country? As that mayor pointed out, if somebody comes into your home and they sit on your couch, you call the police if they won't leave. And that's essentially it. It's just that simple. And they go on, they talk to one other fellow, Mario Rodriguez, 52, who became a U.S. citizen February 16th, a new citizen. He arrived at the library in Hialeah to vote for Trump. And he said this. He says, "I'm an immigrant in this country. I came here legally. In Cuba, they will put you in jail if you come here illegally. They'll do that in Mexico too. You don't have a country if you don't respect the laws of the country." Now, let's take a look at the economic aspects of John Kasich, because this is something that is at the core of all of this. It's a part of the open borders. The open borders are part of the overall globalist agenda. Let's take a look at the myth of Ohio's economic miracle. As Politico points out, Kasich talks about the state's comeback, but a lot of residents haven't experienced it, they say. John Kasich touts Ohio's comeback story on the campaign trail, saying he brought the Rust Belt state back from the economic brink. He created jobs, he slashed taxes, he cut government spending. And of course, this is what you hear from every governor in the debates. They talk about how many jobs they created. That ought to bother you. It always bothers me. If you're a Republican, if you believe in free markets, you know that governors don't create jobs, presidents don't create jobs. And it bothers me when I see these guys taking credit for that. They can get out of the way. They can remove policies that keep us from creating jobs, but the people who have the businesses are the ones who create the jobs. They really do build it, in spite of what Barack Obama said. And when I hear governors harp on this, it has always sounded to me like what Barack Obama came out and said, "You didn't build that. You got a business, you didn't build that. You created jobs, you didn't create those jobs, I created those jobs." And that's essentially what these guys do. But the reality is this. In Ohio, they've been devastated by NAFTA, something that John Kasich voted for when he was a congressman. And now he supports NAFTA on steroids. That's what these new trade treaties are. And he and the rest of these guys, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, they have subverted the constitutional process for ratifying the treaties because they know that even in this globalist Senate that we have, they don't have enough votes to get this through. They don't have the 67% that they need to run this through. So they changed the rules. They voided the Constitution with their votes on the TPA. There's one person who's the executive director of Policy Matters Ohio, and of course it's a left-leaning think tank. They say, "I'm mystified when he talks about fixing the economy. Ohio added the smallest share of jobs out of the 38 states, including the District of Columbia, with no job growth from 2007 to 2015. They say other signs of Rust Belt decline are evident. The state's employment numbers peaked in 2000 with a little over 5.5 million jobs. They've never returned to that level. There's a reason for this. 2000, okay, 6 years after NAFTA. And it was a bleeding of factories moving to Mexico, to Canada. It was NAFTA that he signed. And he wants to do it on a grander scale, a globalist scale. Automakers, auto parts suppliers make up the biggest base of local manufacturers, but of course they're leaving. There was a Trump rally and they had a local mayor and he's standing there on the stage and says, "Over there is that factory, they're going to Mexico. That one over there, that's going to Mexico." Over there's another factory. They're going to Mexico. That's the reality. That's what Kasich is doing to their economy with these globalist trade deals. Stephen Miller, a senior policy advisor for GOP frontrunner Donald Trump, told Breitbart News that Kasich's pro-Obama trade agenda is a death warrant for Ohio manufacturing. He said he is proudly and energetically in support of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Kasich is. He's literally signing the death warrant for Ohio manufacturing. Think about that, said Miller. He wants to win Ohio tomorrow morning, and he's literally saying he will sign the death warrant for Ohio's manufacturing, which won't just wipe out Ohio's manufacturing jobs, but also thousands of middle-class jobs that are dependent on the manufacturing industry, driving down wages for everyone. And he says Kasich is basically a wild-eyed radical with sheepish aw shucks routine. And of course, that's the new Mr. Nice Guy, John Kasich. Pat Caddell, Democratic pollster, really nailed this on the head over the weekend. And this is another story from Breitbart. He says the American people have figured out that they have been screwed by free trade. And he points out this is a key part of the support behind both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And he says the American people have concluded that they're getting screwed by trade deals, immigration policy, other areas where their interests are not considered a priority by their own political and business leaders. Why is that? We're told over and over again that these deals have been put together by stakeholders. These stakeholders get together and decide in secret what these trade agreements are going to be. We're not allowed to look at them. As a matter of fact, our elected representatives are not allowed to look at them either until the very last minute. And then at that point, only Senator Sessions cared enough to look at it and analyze it. And he now supports Donald Trump. Do you understand? You are not a stakeholder. As far as they're concerned, you have no stake in your future. They need to understand we're going to be holding stakes and pitchforks and torches. That's what this election is about. Now they go on and say Republicans and independents following Republicans, even more than Democrats, are anti-free trade. This is what Pat Caddell says, and I think he's exactly right. Spot on. He says, or I should say, they've had it with the trade deals. They've just had it with the Washington establishment. He says what's happening is the economic anxiety, the tremendous alienation that exists, the concerns about national security, particularly China, are all fueling this nexus issue, which is all being expressed in concrete terms over these trade deals. And he points out, remember just last August, Senator Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, the leader of the Republican Senate, the leader of the Republican House, when Barack Obama was on his rear, having had the rug pulled out from under him by Democrats on the verge of a major defeat in advance of the Iran deal, they came riding to his rescue. But McConnell and Boehner, as I assume, after they got the phone call from the Chamber of Commerce, managed to finagle whatever they did to resurrect the TPA, the authority, and to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, if you're looking at it politically, he says. You had Rubio, who said his foreign policy has three legs to the stool. And the third one was TPP. You've got Kasich, who's been a big supporter of free trade. He voted for NAFTA. And he said Cruz has been on both sides of the issue. Yeah, we've seen him on both sides of every issue. Ted Cruz is the John Kerry of the Republican Party. When we come back, we're going to have our sports section looking at the possible outcomes of tomorrow's election and where we are at this point. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Now is the time to secure Ancient Defense for you and your family. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. That's ancientdefense.com.
General, what do you think about the FBI saying that there's a terror alert on Monday about a potential Fort Hood situation?
The police are shoving people, shoving Alex, shoving the crowd.
Here we go, folks. I'm being assaulted. Whether it's the radio show, the news websites, documentary films, or the nightly news, Infowars is the tip of the spear.
Is this another false flag stage attack to take our civil liberties and put more homeland security while sticking their hands down on the pants on the streets?
It's up to us to set brush fires in the minds of men and women everywhere, and that's what PrisonPlanet.tv is designed to do.
You watch, the Assad regime is going to be blamed or accused of using chemical weapons against the so-called rebels.
What we see now is a war against reality. It's a war against the truth.
It's more vital than ever that supporters of freedom become members of PrisonPlanet.tv and share their membership with up to 11 friends and family. Visit InfoWarsNews.com today. Become a member, share your membership, and help take the InfoWar to the next level. Infowars Life and InfoWarsLife.com is extremely excited to announce our latest release, Winter Sun, a revolutionary type of vitamin D3. Winter Sun is a premium quality vitamin D3 nutritional supplement. It is produced by extracting oil from healthy, nutrient-dense plants known as lichens. Every batch is analyzed for purity and D3 content. It's completely free of toxins and allergens. Visit Infowars.com today or call 888-253-3139. Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction. Easy assembly. Low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.
Maybe your parents told you when you're growing up that if you get a tattoo, you will have a very hard time getting a job. Well, I can tell you here in the city of Austin, Texas, you're kind of the minority if you don't have one. So we're in front of Harley Quinn's Tattoo Parlor, and we're going to ask these people if they are tattooed and employed. So you have no issues getting a job when you walk in and they see your tattoos?
Not for a sex toy company.
Do you guys have any issue being tattooed and employed? No? Because your mama says if you get a tattoo, you won't be able to get a job. You guys haven't had any issue with that?
Nope.
We're asking people if they are tattooed and employed.
Both.
Tattooed and employed. You mind if I ask you what you do?
I work for the city of San Antonio.
I'm noticing you got a lot of tattoos here. I'm just curious, do you have any issue being tattooed and employed?
No, not at all.
You guys got any tattoos? Are you tattooed and employed?
Yes.
Has your tattoo hindered you at all in finding employment?
No.
Not one bit. You mind if I ask you what you do?
I sell greeting cards.
We're asking people how they're enjoying South by Southwest.
It's all right. I'm actually working it, so it's a little stressful.
Very good. So you're working it, so you don't have any issue being tattooed and employed?
Nah, they don't give a where I work. It's cool.
I am tattooed and employed.
You mind if I ask you what you do?
I work at Austin Homebrew, homebrew store. We sell stuff to sell beer, wine, cheese making supplies.
So I see you got a bunch of tattoos here. We're asking people if they have any issue being tattooed and employed.
Not at all. Love my job.
What do you do?
I'm a fireman.
You're a fireman?
Yeah.
Good. So you don't have any issue when you go out on the street?
Not at all.
Welcome back to our sports section for the nightly news tonight. And of course, that's really what we're looking at, isn't it? We're looking at the Final Four here in March Madness. The only thing that's really mad about this, however, is the fact that of these final four, we've only got one team that has a winning record. How's that? See, that's the kind of ways that they rig the political process. You know, would you ever see that in a real sporting event? No, of course you wouldn't. What we have here is a situation where you've only got one winning team, but the league doesn't like that team. The league wants to work together. They want to work with the refs. They want to change the rules. They want the refs to rig the final contest. They're going to put everything together in one championship game. They're going to say, you know what, we're going to ignore the whole season once we get finished with it, and we're going to have kind of a sudden death, overtime, a Hail Mary situation, and we're going to adjust all the rules and change all of them at the last minute. And of course, the refs are in on this as well. That's what we're really looking at here. You know, it's really like trying to win the conference to get the nomination and then go on to the Super Bowl to compete against the other major team that you're allowed to compete with. Let's take a look at these four teams here. The first one is John Kasich. Kasich is 0-21 so far for the season. He hasn't won a single state. He has 63 delegates. Now, he would need 84% of the delegates remaining, including today's race. If he wins Ohio, that's 18% of today's delegates, okay? He would still need, if he won Ohio and lost in the rest of the states, which nobody expects that he's going to win any state except perhaps Ohio. If he wins Ohio, he would then be in a situation where after tomorrow night, he would need 106% of the remaining delegates. That's the favorite team of Mitt Romney and many in the GOP establishment, although he likes Rubio as well, who is 3-22 on the season. He's won 3 and lost 22. Then there's Ted Cruz. He is 8-17. Oh, he's the hope of the establishment at this point. He has enough delegates that with 62% of the remaining delegates is what he needs. If he wins no delegates tomorrow, he would then need 83%. So he's starting to get into a deeper hole. Then you've got Donald Trump, who is 15-10. If he wins Florida, Illinois, Missouri, and Ohio, he would only need 44% of the remaining delegates. If he wins Florida, Illinois, and Missouri, but he loses Ohio to Kasich, he would only need 50% to win. What they're trying to do is to make sure that it goes to this kind of rigged, Hail Mary, crooked, sudden death, overtime game that they're trying to set up. Let's take a look at some of these polls for tomorrow night, because this is, even though there's not as many delegates that are up for grabs, this is a very important election that we're going to have tomorrow night. There's 5 states. 2 of them are true winner-take-all for the first time. That's Ohio and Florida. Now, in Ohio, that's the one place where Donald Trump is not leading. We've had several polls in the last week. 2 of them, interestingly enough, show Donald Trump tied with John Kasich. One of them shows them tied at 33%. Another one shows them tied at 38% each. But the other polls have shown Kasich up 5 and 6 points. So they average out to 3.2 advantage for John Kasich. In Illinois, however, we see that Donald Trump in the recent polls there has been anywhere from up by 4 points to up by 13 points, averaging out to being up just under 9 points. In Florida, Trump is up by 18.6 points. The most recent poll shows him up by 24 points. That's a Quinnipiac poll. In North Carolina, Trump is up 12.8%. That's ranged from 6 points up to 11 points up. In Missouri, we've only had one poll. It shows Trump at 7 points. So these are significant leads. And in these states, again, Florida and Ohio are winner take all. You win by 0.5%, you get all of the delegates. Now, the other states are a little bit more proportional. And of course, as we look at some of these states, they're going to be apportioned by things like congressional districts. And we've seen how that has worked out in South Carolina. We're going to take a look at that in just a moment. But there's an interesting analysis by 538. They say don't sleep on Illinois and Missouri. They could help to make Trump unstoppable. They say Florida and Ohio are getting the spotlight because of Rubio and Kasich. It's their last stands, their home states. But they say that Illinois and Missouri could essentially make Trump unstoppable in his quest for the nomination. They say although we've had far more delegates at stake on Super Tuesday, we had 595 then, there are 367 tomorrow night on March 15th. But those delegates on Super Tuesday were awarded proportionately, whereas on March 15th, we began the winner-take-all or winner-take-most phase of the Republican primaries. Of the 5 states voting Tuesday, Florida, Illinois, Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio, only North Carolina will truly award its delegates on a proportional basis, making it the least valuable prize of the night. Now, they point out that Illinois and Missouri are a big part of the reason Tuesday is such a huge fork in the road for Donald Trump. If he sweeps Florida, Illinois, Missouri, and Ohio, as I point out, he will have 748 delegates. He would only need to win 44% of the remaining delegates. That is a very low bar, as I point out. Even if he loses Ohio, he would still only need to get 50% of the remaining delegates. And understand that as this works out, even going back to South Carolina, where the delegates were awarded proportionately, they were done on a congressional district by congressional district basis. And even though it was proportional, Donald Trump won all 50. But of course, that wasn't what we were being told in the days leading up to it. Remember, in a flashback, Ted Cruz was telling us that he was in this neck and neck with Donald Trump. Looking at this USA Today story going back to the day before the election, he thought that he had the inside track because of the evangelical vote in South Carolina. He said, I'm going to win the South. I'm going to win the evangelical vote. Except that people had seen what he had done to win the evangelical vote in Iowa, and they were disgusted by that. We're going to talk about that in a moment. He also now is saying that he is effectively tied with Donald Trump. Well, not exactly. As I just pointed out, he's down significantly. Polls say that, and of course we've seen polls showing him Trump up by 6 points, by 11, by 14, by 20, with an average of 12.8. Yet lying Ted tells us this. He goes to North Carolina and he says, right now in North Carolina, Donald Trump and I are effectively tied. Only to Ted Cruz would that be an effective tie. He goes on to say, it's neck and neck here in the state of North Carolina, where Donald Trump has won anywhere from 6 to 20% in the polls. He says for months, public polls have said Trump is way ahead in the state, but at a meeting with reporters and a Concord rally, Cruz insisted, we're monitoring the race closely, and I can tell you Donald and I were within the margin of error of each other. Well, that's got to be a huge margin of error. And quite frankly, when you look at these polls and you look at the fact that they can vary anywhere from 6 to 20 points, and this is happening with polls that are conducted on the same days in many cases, I don't really know what a scientific poll is. Stay with us when we come back. We're going to take a look at Hollywood being invaded by politics, or is it the other way around?
And all you ISIS people threatening us, hey, we're not a French newspaper, okay? We got people that have taken your asses out in this building right now. We're armed to the teeth, and we're not scared. You got that, you sons of bitches? This is Texas. You want to threaten me, you can go straight to hell. You understand that?
Never water yourself down just because someone can't handle you at 100 proof. It's the Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Brain force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of brain force.
One of the worst things with most energy products is it's not sustainable, right? You're gonna crash, you're gonna feel really bad afterwards. This has a bunch of different antioxidants and compounds and polyphenols.
Everybody's on these drugs to knock their brain out because the brain's so fried.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for. You will find Brain Force, Survival Shield X2, and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Introducing Secret 12, the new Infowars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Well, it's no secret that movies are used to shape political opinion. Let's take a look at this article from the New York Times talking about upcoming movies that have been scheduled and created in a way to shift the electorate to their particular candidate. They say in a presidential election year, the only real October surprise from Hollywood would be a complete absence of films with political tinges, but don't worry, it won't happen. We're going to be peppered with movies that have partisan potential, whether it's overt or covert. And of course, they mention the Avengers. It's not actually the Avengers. It was Captain America Winter Soldier that was about the NSA and drone strikes. We've had documentaries like Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11. Then they talk about some of the other ones that are coming up. Independence Day, Resurgence. Of course, that's going to have the first female president of the United States. Now, who would they be trying to push the people towards with that particular movie? Then we look at The Purge, election year. They point out that Universal just last month added the magical words election year to the title. This will also feature a female presidential candidate trying to score points for Clinton. Then they'll have one that will push back against Donald Trump, perhaps, the founder. This will be a story about McDonald's founder, Ray Kroc. They say that that might bounce back against Donald Trump because it'll show Mr. Kroc as someone opposed to an increase in the minimum wage. And this is also coming from Harvey Weinstein. They point out one of the wiliest political progressives in a movie industry filled with them. And that's coming from the New York Times. And of course, they're very true about that. They're very right about that. Then there's South Side with You. This is the romance of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama about their very first date. Now, there's a couple of different aspects about this that we need to be aware of, okay? First of all, understand that they're going to be selling Michelle to us as a future presidential candidate. That's part of this, shaping that image. The other part of this is subtly pushing us towards the idea that the First Lady should be president, Hillary Clinton again. Except that they're not going to do a romance about Bill and Hillary Clinton because that would be absolutely laughable. So they're not going to come up with a movie about that. Now, while that's going on, and they're openly pushing these agendas, when you look at the people in Hollywood, they are actually having to meet quietly. Listen to this story here. They point out the entertainment industry's rare conservatives and independents are lining up behind Donald Trump. But as they talk about it here, they say, at an undisclosed location, somewhere in the Los Angeles area, about 200 members of Hollywood's private group of conservative Republicans known as Friends of Abe. See, this is kind of like a speakeasy, except what's prohibited here is not alcohol, but free speech. That's the Hollywood that we live in. That's the McCarthyism of the left, okay? They're always talking about McCarthyism and making films about it, but this is the way that it really works. So they're afraid to even meet in public to watch a debate. And of course, they point out that for every one supporter of one of the other candidates, there's 10 Trump supporters in this particular gathering. Let's look at some more intolerance. This, of course, at our liberal-minded universities, because, you know, liberal used to mean that you were open-minded. Liberal used to mean that the education would liberate you. It would give you the tools of learning. But now what it means is that you're pushing a specific agenda very narrowly. Jonathan Turley takes a look at conservative student leader at the University of Southern California who is facing impeachment for inviting a conservative speaker to campus. They point out that they're trying to impeach him out of student government. What was his crime? Well, this guy, Jacob Ellenhorn, appears to have invited someone from Breitbart to speak at the University of Southern California. That is absolutely unforgivable. And these people who are calling for his impeachment say it has created a hostile environments, that's the way they put it, a hostile environments for our USC study body, and has also violated our USC principles of community by bringing a speaker, moderating an event that blatantly perpetuates sexism. There we go. It's always either sexism or racism. The person in question is a Greek-born British journalist who is technology editor for Breitbart. This guy's name, Yiannopoulos, I think is the way you pronounce it, is obviously He points out, Jonathan Turley says, very, very conservative. However, colleges are supposed to bring together different viewpoints and voices, yet faculty and students were outraged. Such views were expressed on campus. An adjunct professor said, harmful speech has no place in the Trojan community. And of course, he will be the one who decides for everybody whether or not this speech is allowed. He will decide whether it's harmful, whether it's hateful. He will censor it himself. And he goes on to say, what is particularly troubling is how a mere expression of controversial views was viewed by some as intolerable and even personally threatening. The president of Pitt's Rainbow Alliance said that having this man speak on their campus made him fearful of being on campus. And he says, look, I've never read this guy's work. I don't know who he is, Jonathan Turley says. However, I fail to see how allowing a conservative voice, even an arch-conservative voice, should be traumatizing to those who disagree with such views. College is a time to hear a plethora of different voices, values, even some of which you may reject. That's what we've been saying. We've been seeing this for years and years. And now, with these riots that were orchestrated this last weekend at the Trump events, we see that Ted Cruz has jumped in with Rubio and Kasich to say that Donald Trump is the one who is responsible. Donald Trump needs to be shut up. Throw him off of campus. We can no longer allow his views to be heard. They are intolerable. They are hateful. They cannot be allowed. We can't listen to this. Opportunist Ted Cruz. Donald Trump is responsible for the organized Chicago violence. And this is our Infowars headline. As I point out, it's quite stunning, even for a politician like Ted Cruz, to take this as an opportunity to come after Donald Trump. They say it's a prime opportunity to highlight the intolerance of the left, but instead he chooses to attack Donald Trump. Yes, Ted Cruz advocates for the political equivalent of her skirt was too short, she deserved to be raped. That's precisely it. And I think the person who had this spot on about Ted Cruz was Camille Paglia. Listen to what she says about Trump and about Cruz. She says, Trump, with his pragmatic, real-life record, is a far more palatable national figure than Ted Cruz. Remember, she is a liberal lesbian who writes for Salon, but she is an honest person. She's somebody that I agree with on many issues, even when she disagrees with me. She is honest and fair and puts out her viewpoints very well, I think. But listen to what she says. Trump is far more palatable than Ted Cruz, whose unctuous, vainglorious professions of Christian piety don't pass the smell test. Trump is a blunt, no-crap mensch, while Cruz is a ham actor, doling out fake compassion like chopped liver. Cruz's lugubrious, weirdly womanish face with its prim, tight smile, its mawkishly appealing puppy dog eyebrows, is like a waxen mask, always on the verge of melting. This guy doesn't know who the hell he is, and the White House is no place for him and us to find out. Well, guess what? The mask has melted, we see who he is, and we don't like it. And I have to wonder, did he sign this petition on whitehouse.gov to criminally come after Donald Trump?
Ladies and gentlemen, Darren McBreen here, Infowars.com. And just when you thought the politically correct left could not get more pussified and obnoxiously stupid, check this out. This is a new petition at whitehouse.gov. This is their official website, and it is a petition to arrest and prosecute Donald J. Trump for incitement to violence. Now, clearly, this petition was started and thus far signed by useful idiots who are unable to rationally think for themselves, and they're brainwashed by the mainstream media because they're just simply regurgitating what they've learned and what they've picked up from the mainstream media, and that is Donald J. Trump is a racist, which is not true. And let me tell you something else. You're not going to believe this. When it rains, it pours. Sheriff's Department considers charging Trump with inciting a riot. So the actual Sheriff's Department in North Carolina, they are weighing whether or not they should press charges against Trump after a supporter at one of his rallies sucker punched a protester. Meanwhile, we do have proof that there is a presidential candidate who is indeed supported by violent racist extremists, and that is Bernie Sanders. Well, we've seen what happened in Chicago, and this protest, it was a George Soros-funded protest, also funded and started by Black Lives Matter, and I guess they're upset because they say Trump he incites violence and anger, so they show up inciting violence and anger, shooting guns in the air, punching people. And this is what happens, folks. If you go to a Trump rally and somebody from Black Lives Matter punches you in the face, well, that's because it's Trump's fault. Don't forget it. More reports, Infowars.com. Had enough of this.
That's it for tonight's Nightly News. Thank you for joining us. Join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the Infowars Nightly News.
Knockout is back. If you want a product that has 10 known ingredients that naturally get your body to relax, your brain to relax, so you get deep, restful sleep, Knockout's it. Infowarslife.com. L-theanine, hops flower extract, lemon balm extract, valerian root extract, chamomile flower extract, L-tryptophan extract, melatonin, and more. All organic, all the natural sources. It's the same price as leading brands of melatonin that are 3 milligrams a piece. It has 3 milligrams, the standard recommended dose for an adult, and it just synergistically puts everything in there. Infowarslife.com. That's Infowarslife.com, or call 888-253-3139.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.